What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks and Game Time. It's Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth. Day 3 of the Senior Bowl, the final day of practices is in the books, so we'll break down what we saw today. It was a bit of a lighter day. One team wasn't even wearing full pads. It had the feel of, they kind of treat this as a game week. So it kind of felt like a
Right.
Friday NFL practice where there was some red area stuff, and it did feel a little bit lighter on the lighter side of things. I think Bubba Ventrone, coach of the American team, even said, a lot of these drills and sessions are jogged through. So we'll talk about some players that did stand out, and we'll kind of wrap up the full 3 days of practice before the game on Saturday. But we can get into it. We can want to start with the trenches. Again, that's what we did every other day. We did see some guys didn't show up. It was more of some of the top edge rushers, but all, Josh Connolly, Ariante Ursary, the headlines of that offensive tackle class were there today. Back on the left side, I thought it was as advertised as what we've used to kind of describe those guys on the left side throughout this week of practices. So what'd you see from them today, and anyone else at tackle spot? We've talked a lot about Anthony Belton, Ozzie Trapillo from BC. What'd you think of the tackles there?
Well, I thought it was a good day. So many of the edge guys left, right? Like Mike
Yep.
Green, some of these other guys left. So it was a chance to maybe see some more of the depth guys or some guys we haven't talked about. One guy we have talked about, though, that I think popped today was, and let me see if I can get it, because even Ventrone couldn't get it. Princely Umanellian
Umanelie or something like that.
something
I
like
don't
that.
know. We will get it. We will get it at some point.
We will get it. I thought he was really good today. I thought he had just kind of regularly winning. He didn't have that Mike Green type over dominating rep, but I thought he was pretty good. I thought it was another solid day for Cameron Jackson as well. Savion Jones, another SEC player that had a good day. And we finally Landon Jackson. He hasn't been bad this week, but I was thinking he might be a little more dominant. And I think the player we saw today from him was a little more what I was expecting.
I'll add one more edge. David Walker from Central Arkansas, I believe, one of those, lower level school guys who can really use this week to propel himself. I thought he came in really the last 2 days. He carried it over today too. Pretty impressive in one-on-ones, made some plays in team drills. So David Walker along the edge, a little bigger guy. He's shorter arms, so he had some trouble dealing with length at times, but I thought for, a lot of the small school guys, even like going back to the offensive line, we talked about the kids from Jack State, Sacramento State, and that's what the Senior Bowl is, right? A chance for some of these smaller school guys to propel themselves up there.
Along those lines, if we're going to talk about the defensive line, Danny Strigow, I think deserves some credit. And look, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about him because I didn't, know he was going to be here. Nobody knew he was going to be here. He got a call last night at 11 o'clock that they needed the lineman, showed up, stretched for like 5 minutes, came in and got a sack. So the fact that, he was initially invited, wasn't it? I don't think he was at any of these games. Kind of sort of tells you the way he's viewed in the league, but you want to get people's attention. That's how you get people's attention. That's a guy that wants to be out there, that wants to be playing ball. And, GMs notice things like that. So he might have helped, excuse me. He might have helped himself today more than anybody just with that.
He literally showed up like halfway through practice and he's taping his hands out there and they're like, "You going to jump in there?" He's like, "Well, I got to warm up a little bit. I missed the warm-ups." But once he got in there, he made a few plays. So that was pretty impressive. And then another small school guy, I talked about him yesterday, Darius Alexander, more of an interior rusher from Toledo. Like, again, just playing all over the defensive line, dominating guys one-on-one in pass rush, and then carrying that over to team as well. So Darius Alexander, a late round guy coming into the week, again from Toledo. Like, we're not watching much Toledo, and then all of a sudden this guy is dominating one-on-ones, and he puts himself on the radar, maybe moving up there early on day 3 or something after a strong week there. So there was a lot of talent on the defensive line specifically, and it gave those offensive linemen a good test. Just, now that 3 days of practice are over, do you feel any differently about, the Josh Connerlys or the Ariante Ursaries of the world there at the left tackle spot?
No, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like a lot of my priors were confirmed again. Josh Connolly probably not a right tackle. Okay, I don't really care about that. But no, I still feel like they're in that fringe, like 20 to 40 range, and I think they would work for the Patriots. I think they're an answer for the Patriots need. They're maybe not the best answer, but they're definitely a legitimate answer. And there's a lot of questions they need answered. So you can't answer every one the best way possible this offseason. I think both would make sense with that second Patriots pick. It's just a matter of, Josh McDaniels or through Vrabel, that piece that Evan did on Patriots.com about how it's still going to be the same foundational Josh McDaniels offense. There's going to be some changes. So where are those changes? That makes it tough to say. I think Ursery's probably more their guy if we're just going off of that. And that's on a very thin. It's not to say Connolly isn't a fit. That's on a very thin margin. It's just, honestly, what I do to go back to look at that, like I can see the line between Ursery and Trent Brown and them making that connection. I don't know what tackle. I think Connolly's a good tackle. Who does he line up with as a Patriots tackle? And people will go right to Isaiah Wynn, but it's not. It's not. That might be as close as you can get, but it's not close. So I think Ursery's probably more their guy, which is maybe my big takeaway from these two. But I don't feel strongly about that. Like, I think they could absolutely make it work with Connerly. I could totally, especially if they're going to do some more of that RPO read option thing, get a guy that can maybe, get himself out into space, which Ursery can do. I don't know. I feel like Ursery's maybe a little more their guy. Solder, Connerly's not as like lengthy as Solder.
Solder was tall too, wasn't he? Like 6. Was he 6'6"?
I think so. So that's not maybe like skill set wise, it's a better comp than Win, but not physically. Like putting the whole thing together, they really haven't had it, and they didn't have that many tackles, starting left tackles when Josh McDaniels was here. That's part of this, right? They went Matt Light. They really went Matt Light to Nate Solder to Trent Brown. Yeah. There wasn't. I know there was other guys here and there. I think Volmer played left tackle for them a little bit, and then they had a couple guys and Win rotated in there and things like that, but there just weren't that many. So it's tough to find a comp. There is a comp for Ursery. And it's not, I'm not saying he is a player as compared to Trent Brown. There's probably better comps, but like, if I look at it, I can see how they would look at it and say, we can put this guy on the same development plan we had Trent Brown. And I know they didn't draft him, but they developed him. We can put this guy on the same plan Trent Brown had. Like there's mirroring there. We can use him similarly with Connerly. He's a good player. And I do think he has skill sets they can use. Again, that's how razor thin the tiebreaker is for me. But like, there's not a guy you point at and you say, yep, that's what Josh Connerly is going to look like in the McDaniels offense.
Yeah.
I guess I probably should have looked back at like Denver and Vegas and see if he had anybody there.
Well, he signed Trent, or no? He didn't sign
Trent. Trent was already there.
Was there already.
He was in Vegas 22 and 23, right?
Yeah. So Trent would have been back here.
Trent was back here. Trent came back in 21 because he was here with Mac.
Yeah.
So they're starting
Gruden or whoever was there in Vegas during that time.
So they had Colton Miller, who's massive. And then what year was he in Denver? Was it 2008?
2008 or 9.
And then he was there for 2 years. No, okay, he got there in 2009.
He came back here in 2010 for the playoffs. So, yeah, 2008 because he was with the Rams.
No, 2008 is Shanahan.
Oh, then maybe it was
with defensive coordinator Bob Slowick. So in 2009,
2011 playoffs, and that's when he came back.
Yeah. So in 2009, doing a little real-time research here. I'm sure this is great radio. They're starting left tackle Ryan
tackles.
I know. Ryan Clady was a bigger guy, so that's not really a comp. 2010.
I know that name, Ryan Clady.
Ryan Clady again. And he was a rookie. And then I guess if we're really going to play this out, Brian, you know why he came here a year later?
McDaniels?
Because remember, So his Broncos 9-10, right? You had the right thought about the playoffs, but no, he got fired after years the Rams offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So if we go to that Rams, I don't even know who the starter is here. I'm just looking at the roster. Adam Goldberg, Mark LaVoir, Thomas Welch was probably Mark LaVoir, who's 6'7", listed at
I don't even
185
recognize
pounds.
that
That can't be
name.
right. I don't think it was him. I got anyway. I'll
Sounds like he likes bigger guys, but
yeah, there's definitely a type there.
That was 2009 and 10. Maybe he is, if we hear this, if he's adjusting kind of his offense, maybe he does want the more athletic guy, and that's really what they have to decide. Because Connerly 6'4", 313.
Oh, it's Roger Saffold. I know Roger Saffold.
Roger Saffold. That one
Roger
sounds more
Saffold.
familiar. What's his height?
He's 6'5", 325, so still a little bit bigger.
Okay. Yeah. So Connerly 6'4", right around 315, and Ursary 6'5", 340. So two really different type of body types and skill sets. So they have to decide, which one fits what they want to do better. If they are, looking at one of those two guys with their second pick there, either at 38 or moving up into the first round or earlier, even in the second round, they have to make that decision there. But any other offensive linemen at all catch your eye either today or throughout the week? I know we talked about Anthony Belton a good amount. Gray Zabel on the interior, probably tough to factor into their plans unless they, again, nail free agency in the trade market. But who else throughout the week had your attention?
Belton was definitely good. Belton, he had a rougher day today. That didn't help, but I still think overall this week for him, you call it a positive. You say he helped himself. And then still some of the interior guys from yesterday, Clay Webb, I think has helped himself out, certainly.
What about the BC kid? Are you higher, lower on Trapillo after the week?
Is it Trapillo or Trapillo?
I was saying Trapillo. I don't know. We'll have to ask Kevin Stone. Get him.
I mean, I think he can be like I wouldn't draft him to be a starter. I kind of felt that coming in. I'm maybe a little bit higher, but I still think he's a project player. And when I say wouldn't draft him to be a starter, I mean, he's not a guy that's going to come in and start right away. He's a guy that you're
maybe on the right side, but
well, yeah, he's going to be on the right side. I guess he could be a guy like you draft him and, you start season with Caden Wallace. You see how that goes. If Wallace doesn't give it to you, maybe you have him ready to be another option when you get like a month and a half into the season. But also, like, if you draft a guy for that role, I'd kind of also like that guy to have some left tackle flexibility, which I guess he did okay at left yesterday. So I guess I'm a little higher on him. I wasn't like blown away or anything. But I mean, he's a solid player.
Yeah,
it's a solid day 3 pick. I think at the very least, he's a good depth pick for the offensive line, which for all we've talked about, this team needing one, potentially 2 starting tackles, a starting guard, a future starting center. Let's not lose track of the fact that they need backups at most of those positions too. They don't really have any backup tackles. We don't know who they're like. Maybe it's Ben Brown at backup center, but we don't know. We don't really know who the backup right guard is. So they need backups too. And getting those guys in the draft makes a ton of sense. I don't know how much you're going to hammer that in free agency. So if it's Ozzie Trapillo as like your backup right tackle and you're working him a little bit on the left side on day 3, yeah, that would make some sense.
I would like to think they have some backups out of the current group, right? Like,
at guard, yeah, I don't know at tackle.
Like, you don't think Vidarian Lowe's interesting because he was a disaster last year at right tackle, right? Like, could he be a pure swing tackle? Like, I would be comfortable with Vidarian Lowe as your backup left tackle, but then does he have that ability to swing? That will be interesting to figure out.
He's also, I guess I'm projecting a little further because he's on a 1-year contract.
Okay, so
that's not a guy you're going to pay. So if you were to draft somebody who can man that, now you move on from Lowe and you have that set, right? Same thing. You're probably bringing DeMontre Jacobs back. I think he's an ERFA, so you're probably bringing him back. Is he a roster lock? I don't think so. Could he be a backup right tackle? Yeah, he'd be in the competition for that spot. But could you get somebody better that's like, early mid day 3? Yeah, I think you could. So that's not to say that like they don't have the guys. I guess I shouldn't present it that way. To me, it's more. Do you think they can get a better backup right tackle in DeMontre Jacobs on day 3 of the draft? Do you think they could improve on Vidarian Lowe on day 3 of the draft as a backup? I think they could.
Probably. They probably could. But that's your trench report. That was where all eyes mostly were throughout the past few days. Some really good talent, especially on the defensive line. side of things. So let's talk about some pass catchers, but very quickly before we do that, we also want to talk about Prize Picks, where you just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. In playoff season is almost over, so it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last week of football action with Prize Picks, where again you can win up to 1,000 times your money with the big game, and they have a big game free pick, a Patrick Mahomes projection discount. Patrick Mahomes' passing total was 250.5. It's down to a half, so he just needs more than half a passing yard. 1 passing yard for Patrick Mahomes gets it done, and you compare that with any other player projection. Maybe he's throwing a Travis Kelce more than 62.5 receiving yards, Xavier Worthy more than 56.5 receiving yards, or on the other side, Philadelphia, they're going to run the ball with Saquon Barkley more than 112.5 rushing yards for Saquon Barkley over there. So if you like any of those to pair with Patrick Mahomes, make sure you download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, talk about those pass catchers. Which wide receivers did you enjoy watching either today or throughout the week?
So Tez Johnson is going to be, we had this conversation yesterday, but Tez Johnson is going to be the guy that's really interesting. I will say this, I noticed about Tez Johnson, because I figured I'd watch him a little closer, right? He's like, he was leading a bunch of huddles. He was hyping guys up. I love his demeanor. I do love his demeanor. I love his body language, all of that. I still not sure he's a fit for the Patriots, but he definitely had as good a week as probably any receiver had. I thought Jaden Higgins had it, capped it off today, had another nice day, was good. He's really helped himself this week. Kyle Williams had 1 or 2 nice plays. He did have like one real just bland route that turned into an interception in the red zone.
Was that the route he took like 9 steps to get a yard? There was a lot of that the last few days.
There was a lot of that from a lot of guys the last few days.
Kyle Williams, like, I think most of the week his releases were very nice, but there was a one he literally took 9 steps. Like, he had a jab and then a crossover to get like 2 yards, and a lot like Tez Johnson did that a couple times. There were a lot of foot fires and stutter steps, to get out.
There was one where
one-on-ones.
And look, I said Jaden Higgins had a good week, right? There was one where it took, you need a calendar to time how long it took him to get out of the break. Like, he was just hammering his feet. But one other guy who I think had his best day today, but has kind of quietly had a strong week, is Chim DK out of Florida. A guy
Future Badger or former Badger.
Former Badger. There you go. I just thought he was kind of, I kept noticing, I was like, oh, that's a nice ride. Who's that? Oh, all right, it's DK. All right. Oh, it's a nice catch. Who's that? Oh, it's D. Like, he didn't have a highlight, but he kind of kept flashing. Big play threat. Has more of that size you want traditionally on the outside, 6'1", 200. So maybe a Patriots target on day 3.
Yep. I thought Restrepo was a little bit better today too. Especially down, showed you how hard he is to guard down along the goal line. And Jalen Noel throughout the whole week. That was one of my favorite receivers to watch. I want to talk about all these guys wasting movements. He is the opposite. He is very quick in and out of his breaks, top of the route. Like, and he was one of the fastest, with the zebra technology in terms of just pure miles per hour, straight line speed. So that's a guy who can really threaten a defense on every level. If it's, with his quickness in the underneath first, second level, or the vertical speed to really stretch the field. And I thought for a guy I think he measured in at 5'9", just short of 5'10". Like, they had him on the outside, and he was impressing on the outside. I don't think he's going to live on the outside, certainly at the next level, but just the versatility is nice for other teams. And then if you want, a bigger receiver, Jack Besh from TCU had another really good day. Some more catches and contested targets downfield. So that's I think he's 6'2", 6'3", one of the more bigger receivers, not opposite of the slot guys, but Jack Besh, I thought, deserves some credit for 2 good days over the last 2 days as well there.
Yeah.
Tight ends, any tight ends? I mean, Elijah Arroyo from Miami stole the show throughout the week. He had one today, another touchdown, and he punts the ball up into the crowd. So
Yeah.
he certainly helped his stock, but there were some good tight ends behind him as well. Who would you like out of that group?
I think the big story besides Arroyo for me from the tight ends is just the lack from Harold Fannin, the lack of production, the lack of pop from Harold Fannin. And specifically, you noticed when they went in the red zone today, like he was struggling with smaller defensive backs hanging on him and didn't play as physically as I expected him to, given his size. So he had a rough week, and it'll be interesting to see what that means. But for a Patriots team that is maybe looking for that developmental tight end, I don't think he falls, outside of the top 100, but does he maybe fall from the second round into the third round? And now suddenly he's in the conversation for the Patriots. So that was more notable to me. Like, I thought Mason Taylor had a good week. I thought Terrence Ferguson had a good week. Those are probably the other two guys behind Arroyo that I thought stood out. But the big thing for me was, like, I kept wanting to see it with Fannin, and it just, he never showed that pop that you're expecting to see.
Do you think Arroyo could use that to jump him as tight end 3? Because it's Warren, Loveland, 1, 2, however you want to put those guys. And I think coming into the week, it was Harold Fannin and then probably, Mason Taylor, Arroyo, Gunnar Helm, who was supposed to be there, but he bailed out. He didn't practice. So do you think after the week, we're looking at Elijah Arroyo as tight end 3 over Harold Fannin, or is it more trust the tape with what you saw from Harold Fannin and, he's still tight end 3?
I mean, he's in the mix. I think that's the best way I can put it. He's in the mix. You look at Mason Taylor and just what he brings in terms of readiness and professionalism, how polished he is. You look at Gunnar Helm and the upside he has. Obviously Arroyo with his athleticism, and then Fannin's another guy. Like, I think that's probably all sort of one group now. And it's going to be, the teams that are taking the tight ends, what are they looking for? What are they prioritizing with that pick? But I would say Arroyo was good. I don't mean this to downplay Arroyo. I think it's probably more of a case of Fannin falling back to the pack than anything else.
Yep, that makes sense. Running backs, again, the game on Saturday should be a little better environment for some of these running backs. We did see some pass protection one-on-ones today. So did anyone stand out to you as a whole, though, in that running back group from the 3 practices? Again, one wasn't even in full pads today, so tough environment to really judge these guys. But did anyone catch your eye?
I think I'm still going to be pounding the table for LaQuint Allen. Just looks really polished, really smooth. Yeah, and like you said, they did some of that pass pro stuff. They threw the ball to the running backs a little bit more. Red zone, like this was more his day to show up. I was impressed with him. I thought your guy RJ Harvey had a solid week. I still can't get over Ollie Gordon though. I still just, and they were talking about it on the broadcast.
He had a rough pass pro rep today, but
he's not, like, I saw that he's not a pass pro guy. I'm drafting him first and second down to be a bowling ball. And there was one they had on the goal line where I don't think they were supposed to be full speed, and the defender is kind of coming full speed, and Ollie Gordon kind of sized him up and was like, all right, I guess we're doing this, and just flattened him. So, like that, I don't care about Ollie Gordon's pass protection. I don't want him on the field when they're throwing the ball, frankly. I want him running between the tackles, lowering his shoulder, bowling over people.
He did have 1 or 2 nice runs too. It looked like in team. One, Anthony Belton was leading the way. So I'm still an Ollie Gordon fan, especially where, in this stacked running back class, if he gets kind of pushed down a little bit.
Well, did you hear, I forget who it was on the panel. They did this bit. I think it was in between practice. I think it was at the end of the first practice where, like, they each got assigned a team and they had to, like, pick a guy or two in the Senior Bowl and make, like, who do you want for your team from the Senior Bowl and how does it work? And no, Charles Davis had Washington. I don't remember who it was. Somebody had the Giants. And their pitch was their big pitch. They picked a couple players, but like the first guy they mentioned was Ollie Gordon at the top of the second round to erase all the Saquon talk. And I don't think Ollie Gordon is Saquon. And he said, like, this isn't to say Ollie Gordon can be Saquon, but it gets you a running back you can build around. He was like quarterback X and Ollie Gordon. And then that's the offense you're building around in New York. So
second round,
top of the second round. I've been hyping up Ollie Gordon as much as maybe anybody besides Taylor Elgersma this week, but I even heard that. It was like, set top of the second round. Wow. For Ollie Gordon. I thought that was a little high, but it kind of felt like one of those segments where it was maybe a little bit informed, and it was a way to like get informed information out there without it being a report. So I'm trying to remember what some of the other Charles Davis just picked like all the best linemen for Washington. He kind of cheated. He was like, we're going to make a bunch of trades and we're going to get Connerly and Zabel and Belton and we're going to protect Jaden Daniels. I'm like, it's not really the point of the exercise.
It's not how this works, Charles.
Right. But yeah, I thought that was interesting that, and look, I think Ollie Gordon be a fit in New York in the NFC East, running in the cold up there, physical division. I don't know that I'd take him that high, but a back like that up there or up here makes a lot of sense. I don't know, I wouldn't take Ollie Gordon at 38 if I'm the Patriots, though.
Second round, that's like Amari and Hampton or one of those Ohio State guys. Maybe that's even a little early for one of those Ohio State
top
guys.
Of the second round for those guys. If we're talking about in the 50s and 60s, then maybe. But like top 40 is what early second round means to me. I don't know that I'm taking anybody unless Genty is there. I don't know them taking any running back in the top 40. Even Hampton.
I've just pulled up the consensus big board. Yeah. Hampton's 48, and then Henderson's 60, Junkins is 63, and Caleb Johnson, Iowa, is pegged in between them, 62. Actually, I could see Cleveland at the top of the second round taking Caleb Johnson, especially with Stefanski calling plays. They're probably going to want an outside zone runner, so Caleb Johnson could be a good fit there. But yeah, I mean, let's see where Ollie Gordon, they have 95, so that would be way earlier than consensus right now.
I don't know the name of the guy that runs that site, but he obviously does a tremendous job. We're fans of his.
It gets updated at some point,
right? He's not able to update. I don't think he updates in real time. It doesn't look like it. So usually I look like the Monday or Tuesday after the Senior Bowl and kind of see how things have shifted. It will be really interesting to see, not just at running back, but a number of positions, kind of where the consensus lies after the Senior Bowl. And my guess is Ollie Gordon is going to be higher. You say I'm like 90 something right now.
95.
Like, does he get into the top 70? I could see that.
Scattaboo 81.
Yeah, they had Scattaboo like 4 something a month ago. So, because it's not somebody watching the players and ranking them. It's just a consensus from other data people are putting out. So if nobody has any mock drafts with Scattaboo, like this, Kyle Williams is not the 824th best player in the draft. But if nobody's putting him in mock drafts, then there's no data point. So he can't be any higher. So usually, and he puts a disclaimer on there at like earlier in the season that there's not enough information for these to be reliable. But usually after the Senior Bowl is when you start to get a better idea of where those guys are. Like this time last year, I don't even think Jaden Daniels was a first round pick on the consensus board. He was, but he was like low first.
There's actually it says last updated 15 hours ago. So I don't know if that means he updates, like he might have just updated a position or something like.
Well, it's also like he needs more information so that, that's off the mock drafts that were put out. But how many of those were like, they're not including the entire Senior Bowl because obviously it's not today's practice. And if it's 15 hours ago, that might have not even included yesterday's practice either. So you got to give it a couple days, but we'll get the good information there for sure at some point.
It's coming. But I guess just end quick offense. Any of the quarterbacks too? I thought Jalen Milroe was maybe a little bit better today, but it was still a rough week overall for those guys.
I felt bad. It hurt the receivers at times.
I know.
And they got to do a better job of getting better quarterbacks next year. It's tough because it's not a good quarterback class to begin with. I shouldn't say they got to get better quarterback. Like maybe that's short-sighted, but like, I don't know. Who else would you want to be there that's not there? Ward and Sanders were never going. And all right, Will Howard, because the national championship wasn't going to go. That's not their fault. Although Nagy needs to calm down trying to rework the college football calendar for the Senior Bowl. I don't know who else I needed to see there.
The only top like 10 quarterback who wasn't at one of the events was Quinn. Like disregarding Cam Ward, Shador was at the Shrine, but it was Quinn Ewers. Like that was the only guy left off, and then Will Howard, who you just said didn't go because he was in the national championship. So there weren't many other options. Graham Mertz is rehabbing, so he can't be there. So yeah, they unfortunately it didn't really help the receivers. There were a lot of check downs, a lot of sailed throws and stuff to that factor, but yeah, it was not a good week for the quarterbacks there. But let's go over. We talked about the defensive line in the trenches, so let's talk about the second and third level of the defense. But I also want to tell you guys about Game Time. We all love going to games live, whether it's only one more football game left this season, sadly, unfortunately, but hockey season, basketball season, playoffs will be starting just right before you know it. So make sure you use Game Time to get all your tickets this winter. In spring, baseball starting up, March Madness. I don't know if the Garden has any March Madness games this year, but
No, it's Providence.
Okay. Still close. So
Still
make
right
sure you
there.
guys use Game Time, and they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier, because they filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Bruins are back home tonight at the Garden, welcoming the Winnipeg Jets. 7:00 puck drop. Cheapest get in right now on the Game Time app is $41, and you can use one of those super deals. Game Time Picks move down about 10, 13 rows behind the Bruins bench, $120. Great deal, great view of the game down there. So make sure you head to Game Time again for their lowest price guaranteed and other in-app features such as seat views, all-in pricing, and Game Time Picks, which again makes it even easier to save more on sports or any other tickets you're looking for. Concerts, comedy, theater, anything at all. Take the guesswork out of buying all of them with Game Times. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Game time.
All right. We'll hit linebackers and then get into defensive backs. That second level linebacker unit. Who'd you like? What'd you see?
So I thought, and it was interesting. They talked about throughout the week. Shamar James is timed as the fastest linebacker being tracked.
That was my guy.
As the fastest linebacker, and I had heard them say that earlier in the week, and I was like, good for him, I guess. I haven't really seen it, and I don't know how many chances that the linebackers really had to run in a straight line like that. Today, red zone, more team. We got to see more of that unit, and Shamar James totally stood out. He was all over the field. I think this was a case of I don't even want to say he had a bad week until today. It's just one of those things, like we said with the running backs. I don't know how many chances he really had to put himself in the spotlight, just given the drills they were doing until today. So got his chance, made the most of it. You love to see it.
That's who I had written down. He was really good today. You saw him a few times around the football in the run game, even though it wasn't full contact, but just working through blocks, getting downhill. So he was impressive, I thought. But hopefully we'll get a better look at all these linebackers with the game again on Saturday. Yeah. So let's go back to the DBs. Any corners or safeties stand out that you identified throughout the week?
At corner, your guy, Azari Thomas, had another really good day. And I think kind of locked in. Maxwell Harrison was really good too. But I don't know. I don't think it's unfair to say Thomas was undoubtedly the best corner on the field this week, which was kind of the projection coming in. It was him and Trey Amos at the top. And Amos unfortunately got hurt. So you don't want to knock a guy for that. But Thomas was on the field. He was better. I thought he was good. Darian Porter had one really good rep today, but he was inconsistent this week. He looks pretty raw. That's one we're like, man, if they still had Mike Pellegrino, would be a great pick, would make a ton of sense. We'll see who the new cornerbacks coach is. But I thought my big takeaway from the corners, I would say, was Azari Thomas kind of put the bow on what was a really good week of practices for him. Yeah.
Yep. You saw what you wanted to see from him. Just the length, so sticky and man coverage. He was really good. A late round guy I thought was pretty good today. Upton Stout from Western Kentucky. Yep. And that's unfortunately another smaller guy. Like, you're not going to get the size. I think he measured in 5'8", right under 180. So looking at a nickel or a slot corner there, and you already have Marcus Jones. So I don't know how much that makes sense, but he was really good in man coverage, especially today and the last few days. And then safety, maybe one of the plays of the day with Dan Jackson from Georgia, getting over there to kind of one of the bigger hits of the week too, and breaking up a pass in the end zone. And he's someone, just, you watch a lot of Georgia as a college football fan, and he's always seems to be around the ball, making plays. He is more of that free safety. I don't know if you like him in that mold moving forward, but
More of a free safety or more of a box safety?
I think he played deep more at Georgia, didn't he?
Yeah, but he's not. I don't think he's a deep safety in the NFL.
Okay.
I don't think. Do you think he has the speed for that? I know he made that nice play today, but does he have the range?
I think he can run well. The range, like the transitions and everything, maybe not though. But it'll be interesting to see if he runs at pro days or combine, what he does run at.
I'm sure he'll run at the combine. He seems like a guy that
will
everything I see about him, the questions are about, athletic upside. So, if he has it, he played mostly deep at Georgia. You're right. I think of him, because he's always around the ball. I think of him as more like a physical player.
Yep. So anyone else secondary stand out, or just the guys you talked about?
Bowman had another nice play.
Yeah.
Bowman had another nice pass breakup. I was pretty impressed with him this week. I'm hoping to see him continue to build some juices as we go here.
All right. So that was day 3, and kind of recapping all 3 days of practice there. I'll just end. Is there anyone you really want to see something from in the game, on Saturday, a player or two that you're really going to be keeping an eye on in actual game action now that we transition over?
Obviously the tackles, if they play, those top 2 tackles are Sir and Connerly, because they're just such key players for the Patriots. And I go back to what I said before, though, like the running backs, Ollie Gordon. I want to see Ollie Gordon run through somebody's face. That's what I'm most excited for. And I guess in that same vein, the linebackers, and let's see if some of the guys that had a little bit of a chance to pop today, if they can keep that going. Specifically, let's see if like Shamar James can keep it going.
Yeah, the running backs for me will be the big one. You mentioned Ollie Gordon, Damian Martinez, Miami, another guy who's
really good on.
Bigger body. He'll be better in this, even though I thought he had a few good pass pro reps today. So just seeing some of those running backs, imagine they're going to run the ball a lot with these quarterbacks, the quarterback play, see how they look with, full contact, full pads, getting after it in game action. Bonus, anyone Shrine Bowl game tonight? Anyone in there? We haven't really talked about that, but just anyone off the top of your head that you have to recalibrate your eyes to watch tonight?
Yeah. I need to do that recalibrating this week. I was just kind of watching the Senior Bowl practices, and honestly, tomorrow, when there is nothing, I was going to watch Shrine Bowl game tonight and then go back and see kind of who stood out in the week of practice. I'll just give you some of the guys I liked going in. The one, and I actually, in that Eric Galko interview you're mentioning, was the first player he brought up, who's definitely a Patriots pick. We're talking about linebackers needing to stand out, right? Brian, is Chris Paul from Ole Miss. I guess he was one of the best players down there this week. True 3 down, sideline to sideline coverage, backer. It would be an ideal guy to play next to Juwan Bentley in this new kind of more aggressive defense that they want to see. Jabbar Muhammad, corner from Oregon, is a player I liked. I kind of hoped would come out last season and didn't. I'm looking forward. Nick Nash has gotten a lot of hype. He was kind of the big receiver there this week out of San Jose State, the Triple Crown winner, former quarterback. I really like Ricky White, too, from UNLV. And I apologize if some of these guys aren't playing. This is from following as far away as I have this week. And it sounded like Will Shepard from Colorado had a really good week, who, if the Patriots want to get that big true X, would be a guy that fits that role. Of the Colorado receivers, Travis Hunter being his own thing, like LeJohntay Wester, Jimmy Horn Jr., those are those smaller kind of jitterbug gadgety players. Will Shepard, to me, is the guy if the Patriots are going to take one of these Colorado receivers.
And then the most obvious guy, Efton Chisholm, right? Western Kentucky, Eastern, not Western. I don't know why.
Eastern
Washington,
because they're both red. That's why.
Cooper Kupp. I mean, he's 5'2", 195-pound slot receiver. Where have we seen that before? It doesn't have the maybe lawn speed, but the short area quickness. Just watching some of the clips down there from the Shrine Bowl, he's been cooking guys in man coverage. So who knows? Maybe that's your next slot.
I'll give you one more main event kind of guy. We've seen this game produce some of the highest drafted kickers the last few years. We've talked about neither kicker at the Senior Bowl maybe being a Patriots fit. So if they need a kicker, better call Sauls. Ben Sauls, the kicker from Pitt, was excellent from deep this year in kicking in Pittsburgh, like mostly at that stadium, Acrisure Stadium, Heinz Field, which is not an easy stadium to kick at for NFL kickers. So he had a rough year in 2023, but 2 strong years around that. He was 6 of 7 from 40 to 49. 7 of 9 from 40 to 49, 6 of 7 from 50 plus this year, long of 58. He might be the real deal.
That was when the Patriots coached it. We had like Jake Moody MVP game, didn't we?
Jake Moody, yeah. Didn't they win like 12-3 or something, or 15-3, and he just kicked all the field goals?
It made so much sense. And then they picked Chad Ryland from the Senior Bowl. So who knows? Maybe your next kicker is in one of these games. So excuse me, we will wrap it up there. Senior Bowl practices in the books. We'll be back sometime next week to talk about the game and really put a bow on it. We might have Taylor on as well. I don't know if we're going full crossover with Mike and Taylor or just having Taylor on. You know, he was down there this week. So we will put a bow on everything, talk about the game at some point next week. In the meantime, you can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his Patriots and Senior Bowl coverage. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our coverage over there as well. So thanks everyone for jumping in with us over the last few days. Hope you enjoy the Senior Bowl. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys next week.